Hi, Kevin.
Becky,
How are you?
well, how are you doing?
Good. You're in a beautiful green space. Austin's a cool town. That's where you are, right?
Yeah, we moved here earlier
Yeah.
this year. Actually, I think you've had a promotion since we last did our shoot.
Now I'm senior director of the creative group. So we're a much larger team now, significantly larger, actually.
It was a fairly complicated shoot that we did up in Alaska. It was just a blast. I mean, I think that was when I point back to like what was one of my favorite shoots that I've done. I'd have to point at that one. I mean,
Oh, that's really great. Yeah, it was really special for us too. I think, when we had seen your portfolio, we were like, yes, that's the type of photographer that we want because, we wanted to make sure that it was clear that when you go on a cruise with Norwegian Cruise Line to Alaska, you've got this sort of onboard experience, but it allows you to still experience being in Alaska. You're not enclosed. What we loved about your work was you really were able to capture the essence of the environment. You see that typical standard cruise photography where it's like so like staged looking. We were looking for a polar opposite of that. We wanted to really communicate the beautiful and majestic setting of Alaska and make sure that that was also center stage in all the photography. And then just the way you shot, like wide open, the natural light that you used. And also we had wanted to like go really wide, with a lot of the photography so that you could really see, the landscape or that setting on the ship where you were, and then sort of draw in closer and have those moments that people would have with one another so that you could tell a full story, like just with images. That was really what we were after.
I really like big, wide, epic landscapes with people as the figures, but not stocky, not staged. I mean, really just feeling authentic. And I'm coming from a background where I started documenting my own activities. Actually, I was climbing in Alaska in my 20s.
Yeah.
And that was my way to embrace photography, was to show my world. And, come as a climber, those were big, wide vistas. They were epic landscapes. And then it was, people, showing the people and showing the drama, the human emotion.
Yeah.
And I think that's a key thing of what I try to do, is really pull the emotion out of an image and really shoot authentically, shoot people, as they are. So real life, but then with this, the amazing vistas and backdrops.
Yeah.
I love that two of the talent that we had, talking about, drama and emotion, they actually fell in love
Yeah.
on our
Yeah.
show.
I know. I love that. And
Heidi,
you can see that energy.
I was just talking with Doug about one of the images of Heidi and Jack. They're walking along the deck and they're just looking at each other. My agent Doug was commenting to me like, there's just such a look in their eyes. And I said, Doug, they were falling in love at that moment as we were.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was fabulous. Really great. I thought the casting for that was fantastic.
Since went on to work with Gaston and Victoria. I took them on another shoot with me down in Mexico. It worked
Great.
so well. Yeah, we really had a good team.
Yeah, and Victoria had that fabulous energy that she brought. She was just like ready for everything. You could really just read that in the photography that you captured.
What was your favorite part of that shoot?
First, all the setups I thought were amazing on the glacier, the kayaking in Tatoosh, and all the onboard. I'll never forget, you had caught that like in midair, the teppanyaki. You caught that like the chef like flipping the egg, and it was just so perfect. But I guess my favorite setup, because I was anxious, but I thought that the result was really great too, was when we had gone to the Mendenhall Glacier Lake. And I remember seeing it when we were flying into Juneau, just spotting the lake from the plane. And I was like, oh, my heart was pounding. I think I was like very anxious about that setup. Even less so than the helicopter ride on the glacier, but more anxious about that just because, we had all the talent in these canoes. And there was a lot of physical exertion that went into that and the energy. And you guys were like off shooting, and we were a little bit at a distance. We were at the glacier base, kind of waiting in the wings a bit. I ran over to talk to the talent and I was like, I'm so sorry because of all the physical exertion that went into it. And they were like, that was fabulous. We loved it. And I was like, oh my God. because I'm not going to be able to move my arms tomorrow. There was definitely like, but you and your crew just brought it, through that whole thing. And you guys are like really in there and like through like the waterfall there, and everything was amazing.
That was an adventure. I mean, we had their canoe, and then we had our canoe, the chase canoe. We had a lot of equipment in this tight little canoe, and here we are in the middle of a glacial lake, approaching the glacier, and there's waves and there's wind, and we're trying to get tight shots, and then staging everything, and it was magic. It really was.
Yeah, I joke with my producer now that had she been on the land-based portion of it, she never, ever in a million years would have allowed us to do that setup.
That was, cool, though. That was a nice way to recover. You're right. You couldn't see. We didn't have a video village. You couldn't see what we were shooting. We were just little dots out in the distance on the lake approaching the glacier. But
yeah,
we really made magic happen.
That was the last setup that was outside, and at that point I think that there was a really solid trust like established between us on the creative side, and then you guys going out and doing the shooting, that we didn't need to be on top of you for that. You knew what you were doing, and that was my philosophy too. We vetted a lot of photographers before we had landed on you. And so my feeling was, okay, if you're going to hire the person, then allow them to execute on the vision that you discussed,
Yeah, and I rely on my team too. I mean, Rebecca, the producer.
Yeah, she's fabulous. I love her.
I've worked with her now for I think 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
All over the world, and we have such a great crew. I mean, actually, my son was also on crew.
Yes. Yeah.
And I did the check.
Very professional too.
He's in the film industry, so he's doing a great job. And I trust him, and I trust my team, and we all work so well together.
I don't know if you remember, but also there was the shot with Victoria and Gaston, and they were in the hot tub, and it was like, my God, like I can't tell you how many times we've taken that shot and like rejiggered it for different destinations, actually, because it's like you could take out the backdrop of Alaska, and you're like, it's the Caribbean. It was incredibly sunny. I remember it was a little bit warm.
It was, and the gestures, they're at the moment, they're a couple, so they have that connection, that when they're touching, or they're just the way that they're sitting on the edge of that hot tub and looking at each other. I mean, it's just, you can tell it's just real. And it feels so, it draws you in, and you're drawn into them as a couple. And then you have this amazing hot tub and the spa, and then just the vista beyond it. You're like, wow, where are we?
Yeah. I'm glad to know that they're doing well, and still working with them. That's great. When we were going through the Alaska campaign deck with you, so you could understand like our positioning in the area and the creative look and feel that we were after. I was there with the producer. It was just a conference call with you and your team, and we were trying to figure out what photographer we wanted to go with. And as we were showing the deck, and then you said, can I ask you a question? Are you looking to, based on all the images that we had in the deck, you said, are you looking to like really bring out like the blue tones and the gold tones here? And we just looked at each other and we were like, that's him. It's him. Because you were the only one of the photographers that looked at the work, what we wanted to go after, and then key into like what we wanted to draw out. I thought that was great.
That's collaboration, because it's your vision, right? So you've spent so much time putting this campaign together, countless meetings and countless conversations. And, my job is now to come in toward the tail end of that and understand what you're trying to do and understand your creative vision, and then with you to expand it, right? So that's what I'm trying to do, is to add what I can. That's why you're choosing me, but then also, honor what you've done and not go against it, but really understand what you're trying to do, whether it's a color palette, whether it's, depth of field, all of the things which come into like, this is your vision of what you want to create. And hopefully I can step outside that box and show you something that you hadn't thought of, or something that is different than what you expected.
Yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't be more like happy, personally and professionally, and I think everyone involved with the results, with the work, that we all did together. It just definitely a highlight for my career, for sure.
Oh, Nice. And it was one of my highlights too. I look back at that as one of my favorite shoots, if not the favorite shoot.
Oh, that's just great. I think that's wonderful. Well, it was great talking to you, Kevin.
All right. Thank you, Becky.
All right, bye.
Okay. Take care.